Welcome back to another episode of the Mindful Hunter podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jay Nichol. And today we are going to do a deep dive into my gear preparation for my solo winter mountain goat hunt that I am leaving on in just under 3 weeks, actually. So starting to get pretty excited about that. First part of the podcast, I'm just going to walk through the gear list. There's quite a bit of stuff that's similar to my last winter goat hunt, but there's also some significant changes, especially in the like tent, sleeping gear, and clothing sections. So I think there's some interesting things to talk about there. And then afterwards, I will go through some questions. I got hammered with questions from Instagram on this one. So that's actually super cool because it makes my life easier when you guys ask a lot of great questions. A little bit of housekeeping. Just launched a new review video yesterday. I did a deep dive comparing the Alaska Guide Creations Kodiak Cub Max Bino harness with the Marsupial Gear kind of bino harness rangefinder pouch combo. Threw that up on YouTube. I am giving away the Marsupial harness. If you want to know how to win that, go watch that video. Also, still lots of great things going on over at Mindful Reviews. So if you want to participate in that community, I highly recommend joining. You can find that at mindful-reviews.com. A little bit of insight into what's coming down the pipe. I am about to start the Power Pack review. This one I imagine is going to take a little bit of time because I have to test a bunch of things about the Power Packs that are going to take, if not more than a day each to test, and I have to run them all independently, and then time how long it takes to charge and discharge under a variety of circumstances, and then run it through a bunch of other tests. So that one's going to be a couple weeks at the very least. At the same time, getting prepared for the big spotting scope review. I should hear back today. A bit of a delay getting my hands on some of the glass, but when you're trying to organize 30 grand worth of glass to come to your house for a couple months, sometimes it takes a little while to get it all here. So the learning for me is that I'm going to start organizing the 65 millimeter glass right away, so that as soon as the 85 mil review is done, we can hop right into the 65. I think that's it for everything on the review front. My goal next week, I have all these half-finished reviews from just the course of the year that, I have a bunch of notes on and I've told people I would share, and I just haven't gotten around to making the videos. So the goal is to just keep cranking out content all the way up until the new year before I got to leave on this hunt. So a couple videos to expect to see from me in the next couple weeks would be the final review video for the Sea to Summit Telos TR2. I'm going to finish the water testing on that early next week. Also, I am going to be doing a follow-up review for my Fierce CT Rival. I've had it out in the field enough now that I feel comfortable kind of talking some pros and cons and would I go with that platform again. So I think as long as nothing goes too far off the rails next week, I should be able to include both of those videos. So we'll see. I'll do the best I can. As always, if you could engage with the platform in any way, shape, or form, it would be greatly appreciated. Like, comment, share, subscribe, share it on your stories on Instagram would be really beneficial. Taking a moment to rate and leave a review on your actual podcast platform of choice is something that really directly impacts, how widespread the podcast gets. So if everyone could just take a couple seconds and do that, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, let's dive into it. So first things first, start with the backpack. And you guys are already sick and tired of me kind of alluding to the pack I'm running without telling you what pack I'm running. But yes, I'm going to be running the same prototype pack for goat that I've been running for the last 3 to 4 months now. I am very happy with this pack. This is probably my favorite overall pack that I've ever run. I should be able to start kind of sharing some details about it early next year. And yeah, I won't say a whole lot more. Most of you know what pack it is, but I've been asked not to say. If you happen to catch pictures of it in the goat hunt and you want to hazard a guess, you're more than welcome. I won't be insulted. Please do. Now, and maybe what I'll do is reference what I used last time and why I'm changing. So last time I ran the Kifaru Fulcrum. This time I'm running this prototype pack. I've actually sold my Kifaru Fulcrum. I really like the Kifaru frame. I was not a big fan of the Fulcrum bag. I used to be. And then I tried a bunch of other bags. And this is a real big lesson for me. Even when you've been using something for 3-4 years and you think it's the best piece of gear you've ever had, unless you've tested, the other kind of market leaders, you could be really missing out. And that's what happened for me. I did that big backpack review and I was just like, wow, man. A lot of these other packs are a lot better than the pack I'm currently running. So I sold it. I have enough backpacks. Now, for the camp sleep system. So we're going to talk about shelter, pad, and quilt all in kind of one conversation. So the tent I'm going to be running this year is the Stone Glacier Sky Solace. So Kurt agreed to send me one of these for review after our last podcast. I'm really excited. If anything, I'm a little hesitant. I think it might be a little short for me, but I'm really looking forward to trying it out. It looks bomb-proof. A lot of people have said a lot of great things, and some people have said a lot of not great things. So I'm very intrigued to check this out. In addition to that, I will be bringing a Z-Pax 7x9 foot DCF tarp. And basically, there's not a great vestibule on the Solace, and this is something that you run into with almost all one-person, 4-season, really hardcore winter tents, that none of them really have great vestibules. And so my idea will be I will have the tarp as a backup, and that if I do decide to set up in one location for multiple days in a row and there is heavy snow, I'm just going to build my own vestibule with this tarp. And then I'm going to be running the XPED Ultra 7R sleeping pad, and that's got an R value of 7.1, which I actually just put together today, why that's called the 7R. This is a new pad to me. I'll run through everything and then tell you what I used last year. And then for quilt, I'm going to be using an Enlightened Equipment synthetic 20 degree Fahrenheit Enigma quilt. That's -6 Celsius for the Canadians in the crowd. For a liner, I'm going to be using the Sea to Summit Reactor liner, and that adds the equivalent of 14 degrees Fahrenheit or approximately 8 degrees Celsius to your sleep system. And then for pillow, I'm going to be doing something a little interesting. I'm actually working on prototyping a double wide pillow currently. I'm a side sleeper, and none of the current backcountry pillows work the way I want them to and are comfortable for me. So I've actually worked a way to attach two pillows to each other, and I'm kind of in the final stages of testing, and I'll put out some videos on that hopefully here in the next few weeks. Now, the last time I did this hunt, I ran the Hilleberg Solo with a XPED Hyperlight Winter Down mat, mummy shaped, and a Kifaru slick bag. Now, other than the mummy-shaped sleeping pad, that system worked extremely well for me, but to be honest, it was very heavy. So ever since that hunt, I've been racking my brain trying to figure out ways about how I can keep the robustness of that system without the weight penalty. Because here's the thing, on a winter goat hunt, you have to have a way to dry out at night, because it's very possible you're not going to be able to start a fire on a regular basis. And even if you could, it's so cold and so wet, actually drying your gear out by fire is just not a practical method. And because I don't have a hot tent, you are left with really the only method of drying out your gear is getting in your sleep system, soaking wet and drying out overnight and waking up dry. So this precludes the use of a down system, because if you get in a down system wet, the moisture evacuates, goes into the down, down flattens, doesn't work. So you get about halfway dry, and then you just find yourself sitting in kind of a soggy down sleeping bag. So I was trying to figure out a way to get the kind of water repellent abilities of synthetic, but then also combining some of the weight benefits of down. And I think there's a bunch of different options, but what I've decided to do is combine a synthetic liner with a synthetic quilt while using my puffy gear. Okay. So basically the quilt is rated to 20 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 6 degrees Celsius. I'm going to add on another 14 degrees Fahrenheit or 8 degrees Celsius. So that'll get me down to approximately 6 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 14 degrees Celsius. And then you can easily add another 15 degrees Fahrenheit and 10 degrees Celsius with the puffy stuff. So I should be able to get down to, minus 10 Fahrenheit and minus 20 Celsius, no problem. And that's a very modular system. You have your puffy gear with you anyway, so why wouldn't you use it as part of your sleep system? And then depending on how hot things are, I can use the liner or not use the liner, or I can use the puffy gear or not use the puffy gear. And the synthetic quilt is tough enough to withstand the moisture that I'm going to be evacuating at night. So that whole system clocks in at 9.3 pounds. So the tent is 4.4 pounds. The tarp is 7 ounces. Sleeping pad, 30 ounces. Quilt, 32 ounces. The liner is 9 ounces and the pillows 3 ounces. And so that comes out to 149 ounces or 9.3 pounds. Now that is significantly lighter. My last setup, I want to say I should open it up actually. Let me see. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, so my last setup was 11.25 pounds. So I've been able to shave off 2 pounds, which is a pretty significant benefit. And I think that is the combination of the tent shaved off about 1 pound, and then the quilt shaved off about 1 pound. Now the pad I'm running this year is 4 ounces heavier, but I recognized last time I'm not built for mummy pads. So I don't really care how much weight I can save with a mummy pad. I hate sleeping on them. I'm a side sleeper and my legs slip off to the sides all the time. And so it's just the price I have to pay. And so I would really strongly urge everyone as well, if you think you're saving weight with a mummy pad, make sure you've got some experience sleeping in a mummy pad before committing to a long run backcountry hunt on a mummy pad. Moving on to the clothing, and we're going to start at what I'm wearing. I break my clothing on my gear lists up into 2 sections, worn and packed, because I'm trying to estimate the weight that's in my pack. And if I'm going to be wearing gear, I don't include it in my pack weight. So my base layer up top will be the Sitka Core lightweight hoodie. My base layer on bottoms will be the Arc'teryx Modus AR. Those are my favorite long johns I've ever worn. I've tried everything under the sun, and those are really the best ones as far as I'm concerned. The kind of dynamic insulation layer up top will be the Sitka Ambient hoodie. And for bottoms, I'm going to be running the Sitka Blizzard Aerolite bib pants. Now, I've basically outlined 2 different gear systems for clothing because I'm still waiting for these Aerolite. I have the Aerolite bib pants and the Aerolite Blizzard jacket, the parka, both set to show up here in a few days. And I don't know how warm these things are. And I don't know if it's going to be realistic to hike in these pieces of gear. So there's 3 potential solutions for bottoms. Solution number 1, Sitka Blizzard Aerolite bib pants. Solution number 2, Sitka mountain pants with the Dew Point rain pants as backup if it gets really wet. Solution number 3 is the Stormfront rain pants with the Arc'teryx long johns on underneath. So basically, I'm going to have all 3 of these systems in the truck with me. Then, once I get to where I'm going to be hunting, based on the temperature and the precipitation forecast, I will choose which of those 3 systems is going to give me, the optimal moisture and temperature management capabilities. Now, some other random stuff that I'm going to be wearing. I normally wear a ball cap. Even in winter, I don't like my ears covered when I'm hiking. I get too hot and sweaty. So Sitka ball cap. For boots, I will be wearing the La Sportiva Nichol GTX. I've been wearing these for well over 2 years now, and they're some of my favorite boots. They're really heavy, but I like them a lot. One thing about this hunt is that I will have crampons with me. And so I like snap-on crampons. And so you need a boot that has both a toe welt and a heel welt, which for those of you who don't know is the little additional kind of lips of rubber at the toe and the heel of your boot where the lip of the crampon kind of grabs on. And then when you crank it down, it bites in and stays on your boot. So you're somewhat limited in the boots that you can use. For example, I've always wanted to run the granites from Schnee's. They have a heel welt, but they don't have a toe welt. So you can only use a hybrid crampon, which I'd prefer not to use. In addition to that, darn tough over-the-calf socks. I'll be using the gaiters from Ape Equipment. They've held up for me really well this year. I'm not going to bring a watch. I'll have an arcade stretchy belt if I run the mountain pants system. If I run the Aerolite bibs, no need for a belt. And then for trekking poles, I'll have the Black Diamond Trail Ergo corks. Now, what am I going to pack? So again, for the top, it will either be the Blizzard Aerolite parka or a combination of the Kelvin Down Woodstopper hoodie and the Sitka Aerolite jacket. Because again, this is really going to depend on kind of what the temperature is like and how much cold weather and how much wet weather protection I think I need. And whether or not I decide on the Aerolite parka or the Windstopper hoodie, I might bring the Aerolite jacket anyways, just because it's a really light piece. It's highly functional, highly versatile. I like it a lot. Now, if I decide to run either the Dew Point pants or the mountain pants, I will bring my Sitka Kelvin Down 3/4 pants. I don't think I will bring those if I run the Blizzard Aerolite bib pants, only because those are already insulated and the 3/4 pants weigh almost a pound, and it's probably not something I need in there. Some additional elements that will be packed for a hat, the Sitka Jetstream beanie. I really like the Sitka Blizzard like mitts for a real cold weather glove. And then for my kind of day-to-day use, I'll have the Stormfront gloves with a couple different liners. I'll bring a thin merino liner, probably bring those mechanics liners, and then I will also bring the fleece liners from Sitka. Actually, I won't bring 3. I will bring 2 of the above 3 that were mentioned. Now for snowshoes, and this is what everybody's going to be asking about based on the debacle 2 years ago, I am still running the MSR Lightning Ascent 30-inch model with the 6-inch snow tail added onto it. Yes, I'm still pretty big. And yes, between my pack, even if I get the pack, let's say the pack is 70 pounds, which it never will be in a million years because I know myself and I'm an idiot. I'm currently weighing 250, probably be 260 by the time this hunt comes around. 260 and 70s, 330. So yes, I will be trying to support 330 pounds on these snowshoes, which is not a great idea. But no matter how long I've looked around and how many people I talk to, these are still widely regarded as, the best snowshoe for the type of snowshoeing that I'm going to be doing. There are some other kind of like more boutique options, but I just don't trust them as much. And at least with the MSRs, even though they broke on me last year, they never completely failed. And I will say I want to take a fair amount of responsibility because I think I was being too rough on them. Like I didn't understand. I've used snowshoes for work for years, but we always just used tubs. And a lot of it was in the interior where you're just snowshoeing in flat country, like flat-ish, gentle upgrades, gentle downgrades. What happened on the goat hunt is that you're traversing across all these avalanche slides and then back and forth across creeks. And so you'll find yourself where you're actually kind of forced to use your snowshoes like little bridges. Like you'll have the front and the back of the snowshoe up on two little mounds from a slide, for example. Or when you're crossing a creek, there'll be this space and your foot will be in the middle, and you're actually putting a lot of pressure on the snowshoe because it's just supported at the front and the back. It's not supported across the middle. I think I can stretch the life expectancy of these out considerably if I'm just a little bit more sensitive and if I just take my time and walk a little smarter. So that's the game plan for those. Now for crampons, I'll be running the Black Diamond Sabertooth Pros. And I also pack some booties. And these are these Mech Expedition booties. These are synthetic and they do have a sole. So I tend to wear these in the sleeping bag at night. And then if I need to wake up and take a piss, I don't have to put my boots on. I can walk outside in the snow in these booties. And normally also because my socks will be wet at the end of the day just from sweaty feet, I will leave my socks on inside the booties. And then the booties act like little feet sleeping bags. And they will force the moisture out and let my socks dry out overnight. All right, that is basically everything for clothes. Now, for optics, I'm basically right now trying to decide between my Zeiss Victory Harpia 95 millimeter and probably a Kawa 88. The Kawa is one of the more intriguing scopes I'm going to be testing for my spotting scope review. And it's one of the ones that I haven't had a lot of field experience with. Some of the other ones that I'm going to be testing, I've used in the field a lot. The Vortex Razor, the Swarovski ATX, the Zeiss. Whereas the Kawa, I haven't. And I've heard a lot of really great things about the optical clarity, the weight, and some other stuff. So part of me is thinking this would be a great opportunity to get a little bit more experience with the Kawa out in the field. So very high likelihood that that's the glass that I will run. For binoculars, I'm going to bring my NL Pure 12x42s. For a rangefinder, I will have the Leupold 1200 TBR. I'm up in the air right now about what tripod to bring. Some of you may remember for years, I have run an Outdoorsman's compact tripod with a center post extension. Now, I have always been a proponent that this is the best backcountry tripod because it gives you the best combination of weight and stability with the aluminum frame. However, you can't stand up with it. And I've noticed in certain conditions, not being able to stand up really limits. Like you'll be standing in a situation, looking up at a set of hills and thinking, oh, this is a great place to glass from. And then you sit down and half the hill disappears in front of you because you're close to a tree line or you're in tall grass or you're in really deep snow. And by the time you pack out a spot to sit down, you compress the ground level almost by 3 feet. And it's happened to me on enough hunts now where it's like I'm kind of sick and tired of being forced to like stand on one knee or just really these awkward positions when really I just want to break out my spotting scope and stand up in glass. And so I have a Slick CF 634, I think, and a C-Ray, I want to say ET 285 or something. And these are both carbon fiber adjustable tripods that are tall enough that I can stand and glass with them. And they're not that much heavier than the Outdoorsman's. So I'm basically convinced I'm going to run one of those. I just need to sit with it for a little while longer to make sure I'm comfortable doing that. And then I need to see which of those two I'm going to run. I have to do a review on those two tripods anyways, so I need to get some more field time with them. Now, and then for digiscoping, I'll be using my phone scope adapter. Everybody's going to ask if I've run the MagView. I have not run the MagView. It's like $200 or some crazy shit. So if MagView wants to send me one, go ahead. Otherwise, don't hold your breath, because digiscoping is one of those things that is like, it's a necessity. I need to do it, but the phone scope works perfectly fine. And I own adapters for all of the models of scopes that I currently have access to. So there's no need for me to change. Now for weapon, I will be bringing my Fierce CT Rival 300 PRC, scoped with a Leupold VX5 HD. And I will most likely be running that with the Kifaru gun bearer. Now there's one caveat to that, being the way the top of the gun bearer attaches to this prototype pack I'm running is not ideal. So it's one solution I need to solve. But I really didn't like strapping the CT Rival to the back of my backpack for the sheep hunt. And the reason for that being, the top sticks up so far that you end up catching all these branches. And if you hang the butt of the gun down too far to decrease how high the barrel is sticking up, then every time you go to take your bag off, you're smashing the butt on the ground. And so it's really kind of like, long story short, if I change rifles, I will be moving to a folding stock platform, because I think it's a much more sophisticated option for the type of hunting that I do. But to be honest, most of the hunts I have planned for 2023 are going to be archery. A little foreshadowing there. I really fell back in love with archery over the summer, and I think I've gotten away from it over the last couple of years. And the focus for 2023 is going to be heavy focus on archery hunting. So I really see no need to spend a shitload of money on a new rifle. The CT Rival is a very nice rifle. So, and I will be shooting Hornady Precision Hunter 212 grain ELDX bullets out of that. Now for a camera setup, as always, I'll have my Sony A1 with a Rode Video Micro. My main lens will be a 24-70 Sony G Master Gen 2. It's a newer lens that I just got, and I'm loving it a lot. Secondary lenses, I probably won't bring, just because weight is at such a premium on these winter hunts, and it would be cool to get some wide angle photographs and some other stuff, but I think it's just one area where I'm going to have to make do with what I got. Now, for action cameras, this is the first hunt that I'll be taking the Insta360 on. Normally I always run 2 GoPros, and from now I'm going to run one Insta360 and one GoPro. Basically long enough for me to test out the Insta360 and see if it is a viable alternative to replace my GoPros. The GoPros are tried and tested and true. I have a lot of faith in them. There are some things I don't like, but at least I know what I don't like and I know what to expect. Whereas the Insta360 is just all new to me. So I will be testing those out and seeing how I do. A little bit of foreshadowing. I have rented a snowmobile. There is going to be extensive snowmobiling to get into the region where I'm going to be spending most of my time hunting. And I'm really looking forward to getting some, super cool action cam footage of me on the snowmobile riding through the trees and stuff. I think it's going to look badass. Now, some miscellaneous gear that is coming with me. A 3/4 Z-Rest. So basically one of those foldable Thermarest closed cell pads. I always cut one I cut a 1/4 or a 1/3 off the bottom of it. And basically you can use this to lay down on if you need to, if you're going to lay prone and shoot. You can put it under your sleeping pad. to give you a little bit of a bump in R value. You can sit on it to glass. You can make breakfast with it in the morning. Like, it's just a really, usable, multifunction kind of piece of gear. I have my possibles pouch, stuff like some lip balm, smoke in a bottle. For my knife, Bruce Culberson has made me a new knife. I haven't got a chance to use it yet. It's super badass. I'll take some pictures of that for you guys. Be using the Caribou Gear carnivore game bags. Probably only taking a few of those instead of all 5. As always, I'll be rocking the SteriPen. I'll have an InReach Explorer Plus. No, I don't have an InReach Explorer Plus. You know what I don't have on this list is the new InReach that I recently upgraded to. And now, for the life of me, I can't remember what it is. I will have it in the next one. It costs like $1,000. It's got the mapping functionality and the InReach texting capability. It's a really cool piece of gear. There's still some things I don't like about the user interface, but it's not the end of the world. And then I'll bring my iPhone, obviously. And then for rope, and this was a tip I got from John Barklow. Okay, most climbing rope has stretch built into it. And that's for safety reasons, because if you're roped off and you fall, if you came to an abrupt stop, you're going to break something. And also, it's more brute force being applied at that discrete moment. So you could also rip one of your ties out. So it's got stretch in it, not only to protect you from the harsh impact, but also to lower the impact on your tie-ins. However, when I was talking to John about this a couple years ago, preparing for this hunt, and he was saying, when you bring rope on a goat hunt, you're going to be primarily using it for the goat or to like lower or raise your pack on and off cliffs. And he goes, in that situation, you do not want stretch in your cord because you end up having to pull more. Like, it takes more force because your bag or the goat is kind of bouncing around at the bottom of this rope. So I am bringing Mammoth 8mm static cord, and it's 20 feet. And so it weighs 28 ounces for 20 feet of cord. I never had to use it last time, but it's one of those things where I think you're better off safe than sorry. I also didn't shoot a goat last time, so let's hope we don't have a repeat of that. Now, for my cook kit, I'm going to bring old safety and reliable MSR reactor. I'll bring at least 3 227-gram canisters. Likely melting a lot of snow on this hunt. That's where it's, fairly convenient water source when you are hunting in the winter. However, it requires an ungodly amount of fuel to melt snow. So you basically have to triple or quadruple whatever you would bring on a typical hunt. I'll also have a Sea to Summit titanium spoon, a couple of small Bic lighters. Now, for my headlamps, I'm doing a headlamp review, and I currently have 3 headlamps I'm testing. I have a Phoenix HM65RT, a Peaks Duo Backcountry, and a Night Force. And so right now I'm just trying to decide, of these 3, which ones do I bring, and maybe bring more than just one. But they're also not the lightest things in the world, so I don't want to have an unnecessarily high amount of headlamps. Now, I will do another, maybe like a quick video or something on my food list once I get it really built out, but I'll go over quickly what it could potentially look like. Breakfast will be a Preak Refuel Mountain Berry Granola. I will bring 4 Starbucks Via instant coffees. I'll have a trail mix. I will have a Green Belly Meals for lunch. For snacks, I will have a baggie of macadamia nuts. I'll have some whey isolate that I will have pre-added to the breakfast. Cliff Builder protein bars, maybe some Cliff Blocks. Peak Refuel for dinner with added macadamia nut oil. And then sausage of some kind and some type of electrolytes. I've been using Hydrate and Recover from Wilderness Athlete. And then some type of vitamin pack. So fiber, fish oil, multivite, and some type of greens. And so if I was to bring something in like that, would put me in the neighborhood of 1.7 pounds per day and approximately 3,364 calories per day. One last note, because it's so cold, I will not be bringing a bladder. I will be bringing 2 Nalgene's. I will also, normally I bring it's called a dromedary or a drom light. And it's basically like a heavy duty external bladder for holding water in. I will not bring one of those because as soon as water freezes in that, you're done. The bag is useless and there's really no way to thaw it out. So instead what I do is I bring 2 Nalgene's, one to kind of use and one to have as a spare, or one to make my protein shakes in and the other one for water. Or I like having flavored water around. I also like having a little water for coffee. So one can have some electrolytes in it that I sip throughout the day. The other one can have pure water in it so I can make some coffee at lunch. But it's a very versatile system. And the thing with Nalgene's is you can always stick them inside the MSR reactor. You can put a little bit of water in there, heat it up, and then if you do get water freezing inside the Nalgene, put the frozen Nalgene inside the warm water inside the MSR reactor. You can melt it. You're good to go. Also, pro tip for cold boots in the morning, pour boiling water inside your Nalgene, close the Nalgene, and stuff the Nalgene down into the boot. This will warm your boot up. That is about it for the gear stuff. So if you have any additional questions, if you're curious about anything, let me know. If you think I've missed anything or made some bad choices, I'd be interested in that as well, especially if you've been out on these types of hunts before. If you're curious why I made some of the decisions I did, yeah, just let me know. Okay. Let's get on to the Q&A section. So my buddy Bird Grabber says glassing pad. As I noted, I will be using a Thermarest Z-Lite kind of folding seat, but they have one that's an actual glassing pad, but it's much smaller, both in length and width. And I find it's too small for me. Like my hips and ass end up hanging over the edges and then I get wet if the ground's wet. So I like something that's like a lot bigger and I can fold it in half and it's got a little bit more insulation to it. Leap Outdoors says tripod. You mentioned tripod heads in your Christmas list. What about tripods? So that's the other thing I didn't mention in this is that I still will be using the Outdoorsman's pan head as my primary tripod head. I think bang for your buck and weight wise, it is the best backcountry head that you can use. And I think right now, if you put a gun to my head, I'm probably going to run the Slick tripod. Duke Dupre says, what state? Well, no state, my friend. It's a province, and it will be northern British Columbia. Josh says, what specific model SteriPen do you use in cold weather? Is the Ultra the best? So I have the SteriPen Adventurer, and I don't recommend it. It tends to burn through batteries and doesn't really give you advance notice when they're going. It's just like sometimes it'll last for 50 fills, sometimes it lasts for 30 fills. It's really hard to tell. And then once it's dead, it's dead. And if you don't have the weird, crazy batteries that it takes, you're SOL. So I highly recommend the Ultra. I haven't had the opportunity to use the Ultra yet. I'm kind of waiting for this one to die so I have an excuse to buy it. And my buddy James says, how do you organize your hunt plan? And he says, I can elaborate more if interested. But basically what he was getting at was, how do you organize the data from your e-scouting and your scouting? So if you have, points of interest or paths of interest or locations you want to get to or trailheads you want to park at, how do you organize that all into, something that makes sense? And so I will say the bulk of my organization happens in Google Earth. So as I prepare for a given hunt, I will start a folder in Google Earth. And in that folder, I will put all of the points that are of interest to me for that particular hunt, like glassing spots I want to get to, trails I want to take, all that kind of stuff. And then I will normally wait until the night before I leave. And then the night before I leave, I will decide if there's any of that I no longer want on my screen when I'm in the bush. And I'll kind of move that stuff to a backup folder. And then I'll export that whole folder as a KML and I will import it into Onyx. And then when I'm in Onyx, I'll kind of color code things so that it makes sense to me. I'm not going to get into exactly what that is because it doesn't matter. Everybody just, so you know the difference between like a parking spot and a glassing knob and that kind of thing by looking at the colors of the points. And then I will make some notes as the hunt goes on. However, normally I have a pretty good memory, and as long as there's like a word or a location or something unique about that point, it will bring back kind of what I saw and what was there. Because the other things James was asking about is like, you know, I get home and I've got all these garbage points and I've got all these good points, and then I go back to hunt someplace in 2 years and I don't really know what to pay attention to. I think you can spend some time cleaning up your data set when you get home. And if you went to a bunch of the points and there was nothing there, then just get rid of them entirely or make little notes inside that say, don't need to go back here in the future. But I think the two big takeaways for me are pre-organization in Google Earth, where everything is labeled. And then when you import them into Onyx or whatever your mobile mapping platform of choice is, you color code them so that they visibly make sense to you and you don't have to click in on each individual point to know what it is referring to. Dan says, what type of crampons are you going to be running? As I mentioned already, the Black Diamond Sabertooth Pros. Jumpin' Legs says, is goat hunting prep any different than prepping for sheep? Well, I would say not inherently, but because the only goat hunts I've done are in the middle of winter, yes. But if you were hunting a sheep in the winter, it would be just like hunting a goat in the winter. So I would say there's not necessarily a difference between prepping for goat and prepping for sheep, but there is a difference between the season that you're going to be hunting the animals in. Like a lot of the choices I'm making are strictly because it's a winter hunt. Jagger says, what changes have you made to your gear list compared to last year? I mean, the real big changes are the sleep system. There is nothing similar about my sleep system. Changed my tent, changed my pad, changed my bag. Very excited to see those. And then the clothing system. Last time I ran Stormfront rain gear and then base layers. And that actually worked extremely well. From like a survival perspective, I think it's a very safe, conservative option. But I'd like something that's not quite so hardcore. Also, where I was going last time is known as this like really wet location. And I'm not actually going to be that far from where I was last time. Like as the crow flies, like, you know, a couple 100 kilometers probably. But I would like something that's a little more versatile. And the thing about that Stormfront is it will keep you alive, but it's not the most comfortable thing to wear in the world. Tips to keep feet warm during those cold days. The nice thing about the goat hunting I've done and continue to do for some reason is that it's not a whole lot of just sitting around and glassing. There's a lot of walking involved, getting from one kind of location to another. And I find as long as you're getting up and walking every hour or two, my feet stay relatively warm. I would say don't wear boots that are over insulated. Don't wear boots that are too tight. Don't put on too many pairs of socks because that will make your boots too tight. All these things will contribute to your feet getting colder by reducing circulation, increasing sweating, all that kind of stuff. So those are some tips I would give to help keep your feet warm. Also, you can wrap a puffy around your feet and you can bring booties. So if you're going to be sitting there for 3 hours glassing, take off your boots, put on the booties, wrap your feet up in a puffy or in your quilt, and then sit there and be very comfortable. That's the other reason I like the synthetic quilt. If I was going to sit in glass somewhere for 3 hours, I would just get my quilt out and I would put my little Z-Rest pad down, build myself a nice little kind of chaise lounge type of deal, and I would just sit there in my quilt and glass till my heart was content. Weston asked me my boot sock system. Already went over that. It's going to be the La Sportiva Nichol GTX, and then the darn tough, kind of heavy winter over the calf socks. So this is a very interesting question. What type of avalanche / winter climbing equipment will you bring? Oh, something else that's not on the list is Petzl ice axes. I have 2 of them. They're very simple. I will have that, and I will have rope. I'm not bringing a shovel. I was told to last time, and I was able to get away with it because you've got the snowshoes. I think it's unnecessary weight to carry around. Here's the thing. I am not an avalanche expert. So I stay away from situations where I would need some extraordinary level of knowledge or skill in order to be safe. So I pick camp spots where I couldn't get hit with an avalanche no matter what. I don't stop on the sides of hills where an avalanche could occur. So I do my best to mitigate the risk situationally as opposed to technically. Like I'm not going to climb things that I don't know how to climb, and I'm not going to put myself in situations where something bad could happen and I wouldn't have the expertise or the experience to get myself out of it. That being said, bad shit can still happen. And this is one of those hunts. I don't normally wear my inReach on my chest. Like I don't normally wear it clipped to the front of my gear. But on this hunt, I probably will. Because if you got in an avalanche and you were having a problem, having that inReach there and being able to pop smoke and pull the SOS if you had to would be a very positive thing. The other last thing I'll note is this is one of the only hunts where I do detailed safety plans with check-in and check-out times. So I will literally have somebody, and not my wife, because she doesn't have the experience to understand what to do if something goes wrong. Normally somebody experienced like Lander. And I will say, here's the deal. Here's my maps. This is where I'm going. These are the days where I'm planning to be wherever. And I'm going to check in with you every night by, normally like, because it's going to be dark by, it's probably dark by 4:30 up there right now. I will check in with you every night by 6. And if you don't hear from me by the next morning at 6 a.m., start to get concerned. And then we'll have a backup plan that after X many hours, if I haven't checked in, you send in the cavalry. And in advance of that, I will have given him all the numbers that he's going to need. I'll tell him where I'm going to be parked. So when he phones the RCMP, which is what you'd have to phone in British Columbia, because you can't instigate a search and rescue party without a missing person first. So a lot of people think you can phone search and rescue. You can't. You have to phone the cops. You say this person is missing. Once they agree that yes, that person is missing, then they will instigate the search and rescue. So I'll have all that information down on paper. I'll email it to him. I will CC my wife with it and make sure my wife has somebody like Lander's contact information. So if she can't get a hold of me, she can get a hold of them. So that, while it's not directly applicable to like avalanche preparation, this is one of those hunts where it's like, don't fuck around. It's a big deal. A lot of people are kind of, what are you doing? This is a crazy hunt. I get it. It's not, it is above and beyond kind of the average set of risks and challenges that one would undertake. But I also think that doesn't mean don't do it. It just means do it with awareness and do it with intention and take the proper precautions so that you can enjoy yourself and come home in one piece. Great question though. On the list for next year, I'd like to do an Avi cert because I would like to be able to start pushing the boundaries a little bit further. And I feel like I need more education before I can do that. Will the snowshoes make it home? I mean, I'd like to say yeah, but probably not. Oh, this is interesting. What type of books are on your Kindle? So every time I'll try and take like self-improvement books or business books or motivational books or like, the shit that you look at and you're like, that I should read stuff like that, because I would be a smarter person if I read stuff like that. And every time I don't read any of that shit. You want fun stuff. And I don't know what that is for you. Is it murder mystery? Is it spy shit? Is it dragons and fantasy novels? That kind of tends to be what it is for me. I don't read a whole lot. My brother reads a ton. So before I go on one of these hunts, I ask him, and he kind of knows what I'm into, and I'll ask him, what are some good books for me to download? And because I want fun, fantastical stuff, and I don't mean just fantasy when I say fantastical. Let's take a little minute and talk about the psychological challenge of this hunt. Winter goat hunts are, in my limited experience, the single toughest psychological challenge you can have on a hunt. Nothing else I've ever done has come anywhere close to the week solo hunt I did chasing winter goats last time. It is very hard. You're lonely, you're wet, you're cold. Going everywhere takes 3 times as long as you would think. It just beats the shit out of you psychologically. So when it comes time for lunch, when you get back to the tent at night, when you're making your coffee in the morning, you want something that's going to take your mind out of the shit. You want something that's going to like lift up your spirits and be interesting and engaging and fun and like cool. And you want to look forward to it. Like I want to be hiking back to the tent tonight being like, man, I can't wait to listen to that audiobook that I was listening to this morning or on my lunch break. Because it gives you something to look forward to. And then all of a sudden the inside of that tent isn't this like dreary, wet, condensation filled hellhole. It's like this cool cave where you're reading this sick book. And then like for months and years afterwards, when you see that book or think about that book, you get taken back to that hunt. And it's a great way to kind of solidify memories and locations and experiences. So my recommendation is take fun shit. Take stuff that you're going to enjoy. Take stuff that you're going to have a hard time putting down. You want something that's going to be energizing. You want it to bring energy into you, not take energy away from you. And some art, while a noble pursuit, is very draining. Like you watch some movies sometimes, some of those art house ones, and it's like, I don't even know what the fuck is going on right now. And you should watch it because like you're going to be a smarter person afterwards or more cultured or whatever, but it's hard and it takes mental energy. That is not the situation you want to be in on a goat hunt. You want to be like watching like the Dumb and Dumber of movies, like just fun, lighthearted shit. Go-to food choices. I've done a lot of videos on food, so go have a look at my channel. But here's what I will say. For freeze-dried meals, my favorites, still Peak Refuel. I've tried them all. Peak Refuel taste better, and they have way more protein than all the rest. Got to say it. Coffee, Starbucks Via. Black Rifle Coffee, until you decide to sell instant coffee in Canada, go fuck yourself. Green Belly meals for lunch, love them. The Wilderness Athlete Pack-Out bars, delicious. Some type of real sausage, just because like biting into like real meat and not like bone-dry jerky, like real meat with lots of fat is just a really uplifting experience when you're out there, like having some real food, Have you ever considered layering a down quilt under a synthetic to meet the temp rating? Well, I would like to say I've done slightly better than that this year by layering the synthetic liner under the synthetic quilt. And the reason I'll say that's a slightly better option is that even putting the down quilt under the synthetic, remember, you're trying to dry from the inside out, which means all your moisture is going to have to pass through the down and into the synthetic before it can evaporate. which means that halfway through the night, your down is just going to be waterlogged. I would almost do the opposite and put the synthetic on the inside so that it could be pushing all the moisture out through the down, and then the down would be open to the air, and hopefully it would be able to evaporate. What podcasts are you using to kill time at night? Okay, so this is the same answer as the book question. I split podcasts into two groups: educational and community. And an educational podcast could be like a Lex Friedman. It could be like, and some of these blur the lines, but, and some of these podcasts blur the lines between an educational and a community. But a community podcast is something normally where there's more than one host, and it's like the same group of guys that are consistently chatting. Like I think the Meat Eater kind of blurs the line into a community podcast. For me, Fuad's Bro Chat and Bodybuilding and Bollocks is a very community-based pod chat. My buddy Ron's podcast, It's Just Bodybuilding, I lump into that community category. And the reason I do that is because I listen to these podcasts so often that I start to feel like I know the hosts. And it starts to feel like every week when I tune in, we're like hanging out. And I know that sounds weird, but the reason that's important is that when you go away on these solo hunts, you will feel lonely and you will want to leave. It's like pretty soul crushing. And when you can turn on one of these community podcasts, it distracts you. It's like, oh, it's my buddies. I'm not alone. Ron's here from the gym, or Fuad's here, or like, Steve's here. Like I hear these guys every week when I'm in my truck, when I'm, going out for dinner with my wife, when I'm doing normal everyday shit. These guys are a part of my life. So now when I'm out in these really intense circumstances and I might not be at my best mentally and I might need a little psychological pick-me-up, I listen to these guys for half an hour and then I feel like I'm okay again. I feel like it's normal and everything's going to be all right. So while I would have some educational based podcasts because I find them very interesting and they're a great way to pass the time, the majority of what I'm taking for kind of, psychological support purposes for podcasts are these community podcasts. Like I go so far as to 2 weeks before I go on one of these hunts, I stop listening to all my favorite community-based podcasts and I backlog them. I want like 3-4 episodes of each so that when I get out there and I'm in the wilderness, I've got a bunch as backup, because it's super weird, but you also don't know what you're going to be in the mood for. And some days like playing Meat Eater really picks me up. Some days it depresses me. Some days playing something else might pick me up and it might depress me on another day. And so having 3 or 4 different options, just being like, man, I need a little something right now. And then having that in your arsenal to draw from, it's a really big advantage and something I lean on a lot. My buddy says rifle or bow. This is going to be a rifle hunt. I am very comfortable that the hunt is going to be challenging enough. A goat with my bow is very, very high on my wish list, and I will get it done, but this year's not the year. And then, does your beard keep you warm? Funnily enough, it does. And I think part of it is it cuts off like cold air getting down your shirt. Like your collar from your jacket kind of meets your beard, and 1000%, it definitely helps keep you warm. Yeah, it's hilarious. And then my buddy says, what class of Biltron 9000 are you looking for? I want a Billy. I will not purposely shoot a nanny. I'm not going to say that I am incapable of making a mistake. I hope I don't make a mistake. I feel the same way about a sheep. I will do everything within my power. And if I have any doubts whatsoever, I won't shoot. I would rather come home empty than with a nanny. They've specifically asked us our conservation managers and our wildlife managers to not target nannies in the area where I'm going to be hunting. So I will do my best to not do that. And as far as a billy goes, I want a nice mature billy. I'm not going to claim that I'm an expert on aging billies. I hope I'm in a situation where I can compare them against each other. I hope I can see a couple goats at the same time, side by side, because I think that's my best bet of coming to the best conclusion. I've done my homework as far as how to age and how to sex, and I think I've done a responsible job. But like I say, I'm not an expert. This is only my second, dedicated goat hunt, and I didn't see a whole lot of goats last time. I saw some. But I'm sure there's a lot of room for improvement in my aging and sexing capabilities. But I'm not going to say that I'm looking for some trophy class either. I will be very happy with a mature animal, and it doesn't have to be, a Boone and Crockett animal, but I want a mature billy, and that's the goal. So I'll do everything within my power to make that happen. All right, today's the middle of a work day. I was trying to bang this one out as quick as possible. I hope that didn't feel too rushed. Yet again, I would love to ask you guys to engage with the platform. Any help or support you can offer is always greatly appreciated. And remember that Bino review video just dropped. If you want to learn how you can win one of the Bino harnesses, head to mindful-reviews.com. And as always, thanks for tuning in.